I never expected my life to turn upside down because of her. I was the girl who kept her heart guarded, who never believed in stolen glances or secret smiles, until I met her. Her name was Alina, and she was everything I wasn't supposed to want: married, sophisticated, and seemingly untouchable. But from the very first time our eyes locked, something shifted. It happened at a dinner party. She was standing across the room in a flowing black dress that hugged her curves, her laughter filling the air like music. Her husband was beside her, distracted by business talk, but Alina's eyes, those deep hazel eyes, kept finding mine. I told myself I was imagining it. But when she excused herself and walked toward me, my heart skipped in ways I couldn't ignore. "Hi," she said softly, her voice low and warm. "We haven't met, have we?" I smiled nervously, suddenly aware of how close she stood. "No. I guess not. I'm Emma." "Alina," she whispered, as if her name itself was a secret. That night, we talked for hours. About books, about art, about dreams that didn't quite fit into her carefully curated life. Her husband glanced our way occasionally, but she brushed him off with that radiant smile. I knew then, dangerous as it was, that she felt it too. When the party ended, she lingered by the door. "It's been a long time since I've had a conversation like this," she admitted, almost shyly. Then, her hand grazed mine. It was the briefest touch, but it lit a fire I couldn't put out. I went home restless, replaying her words, her laughter, that stolen touch. She was married. She was forbidden. But my heart whispered what my mind refused to admit: I wanted her. And deep down, I had the terrifying, thrilling feeling, she wanted me too. The next time I saw Alina wasn't by chance, it was by choice. A week after that dinner party, I found a message from her on social media. It was short, casual, almost innocent: "I'd love to continue our conversation over coffee sometime. Just us. Just us." Those two words made my stomach twist in knots. I knew what it meant. Or maybe I just wanted it to mean more than friendship. Still, I couldn't resist. I replied yes, even though my fingers trembled on the keyboard. We met at a quiet cafe tucked away from the busy streets, the kind of place where nobody would think twice about two women leaning close across a table. When she walked in, my breath caught. She wasn't dressed like the polished socialite I remembered. Instead, she wore a simple blouse and jeans, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked younger, freer, like she had taken off a mask. "Emma," she said, her lips curling into that familiar smile. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "Neither was I admitted, my voice softer than I intended. What began as casual chatter quickly shifted into something deeper. She spoke about how suffocating her marriage felt, how she hadn't recognized herself in years. "He's a good man," she said, swirling her coffee absent-mindedly. "But good isn't always enough." Her eyes lifted to mine, searching, as if begging me to understand. I did. More than I wanted to admit. When our hands brushed across the table, I didn't pull away this time. Her fingers lingered against mine, tentative but deliberate, as though testing the waters of a forbidden sea. The cafe was nearly empty, but it felt like we were the only two souls in the world. "Alina," I whispered, my chest tight. "This, whatever this is, it's dangerous." She smiled sadly. "I know. But tell me you don't feel it too." I opened my mouth to deny it, to be the sensible one, but the truth betrayed me. "I feel it," I breathed. Her face softened, and for a moment, silence hung heavy between us. Then she leaned in, not for a kiss, but for something far more intimate. She pressed her forehead to mine, closing her eyes. I could feel her breath against my lips, warm and shaky, as though she too was fighting the pull. When we finally parted, the air crackled with unsaid words. She stood up first, her hand grazing mine once more before she left. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and knew my life had just changed. Because I wasn't falling for Alina. I had already fallen. And the scariest part? She was falling too. After that cafe meeting, there was no turning back. What started as a spark had become a flame we could no longer hide. We texted endlessly, little jokes that made us laugh in the middle of the day, secret confessions we wouldn't dare share with anyone else. Every time her name flashed on my screen, my heart leapt. One evening, she invited me to her studio. "It's where I escape," she said. "I want you to see that part of me." Her studio was tucked above a quiet bookstore, the kind of place you'd miss unless you knew it was there. The room was scattered with canvases, brushes, and the faint scent of turpentine. Sunlight streamed through the wide windows, casting golden patterns on the wooden floor. Alina stood there, looking less like a polished wife and more like the artist she truly was. Her hair was tied up messily, paint smudged faintly on her wrist. She looked alive. She looked free. "I don't usually let anyone in here," she admitted, brushing her fingers along a canvas. "But with you, I wanted to." I swallowed hard, my chest aching with a mix of nerves and desire. "I'm glad you did." We walked around the room, her showing me unfinished pieces. But I barely saw the art, I only saw her. The way her eyes lit up when she spoke about colors. The curve of her lips when she smiled. The way her hand occasionally brushed mine, sending shivers up my arm. Finally, we stopped in front of a painting of a woman's silhouette, mysterious, strong, unfinished. "She's me," Alina said quietly. "Or at least, the me I want to be." Without thinking, I reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her breath caught, and for a heartbeat, the room went silent except for the pounding in my chest. "Alina," I whispered. She turned toward me fully then, her eyes searching mine with a question she was too afraid to ask aloud. I didn't answer with words. I leaned in. Our lips met slowly, tentatively, as though both of us were terrified the moment might break. But once it happened, once I felt the softness of her mouth against mine, there was no going back. The kiss deepened, her hands trembling as they slid to my waist, my fingers tangling in her hair. It wasn't just passion, it was release. Every longing glance, every hidden touch, every unspoken word had led us here. When we finally pulled apart, her forehead rested against mine, both of us breathless. "I shouldn't," she whispered. "Neither should I murmured. "But I don't regret it." Her lips curved into the smallest, most dangerous smile. "Then maybe I don't either." That was the night we crossed the line. And once we did, there was no turning back. After that night in her studio, everything between us changed. We no longer danced around the truth, we were in it, fully, breathlessly, dangerously. The world outside didn't matter when it was just us, but the moment we stepped back into reality, the weight of what we were doing pressed heavy on our shoulders. Yet, neither of us stopped. We couldn't. We found excuses to see each other, coffee meetings, errands that conveniently overlapped, long walks where we pretended to be just two friends. But every stolen moment was laced with desire. A brush of her hand against mine in a crowded street. A whispered joke that made us lean too close. The kind of eye contact that left me breathless for hours afterward. One afternoon, we slipped away to a quiet park. The trees shielded us from the world, and she sat beside me on a worn wooden bench, her hand slipping into mine like it belonged there. "Sometimes," she murmured, "I forget I'm married when I'm with you." Her words should have scared me. They should have sent me running. But instead, I pulled her closer. "And when you remember?" I asked softly. She hesitated, her eyes shimmering with something like fear, and something like love. "Then I don't care," she whispered before kissing me, quick and desperate, as though she couldn't stand another second without it. Our kisses became hungrier, our touches bolder. In hidden corners and quiet rooms, we let ourselves unravel. Every time she pressed her body against mine, every time her lips traced my skin, I felt more alive than I ever had before. It wasn't just lust, it was connection, soul deep and undeniable. But passion came with a cost. There were moments when she pulled away suddenly, guilt clouding her face. "Emma, what are we doing?" she would ask, her voice breaking. And every time, I'd cup her cheek, force her to look at me, and whisper, We're being honest with ourselves. She never argued with that. Instead, she always came back, always found her way into my arms again. Still, I could feel the cracks forming. Every time her phone buzzed with her husband's name, her body stiffened. Every time I left her, I wondered if it would be the last time. The risk was growing, and the more she gave herself to me, the more she had to lose. But in those stolen moments, none of that mattered. It was just us, burning too brightly to care about the flames. And even though we both knew we were walking a dangerous path, neither of us could resist taking one more step. It couldn't stay secret forever. As much as we tried to hide in stolen corners and whispered calls, the weight of what we were doing pressed heavier each day. I noticed it first in Alina, the way her smile dimmed whenever she returned home, the way guilt lingered in her eyes even after our most passionate nights. One evening, she came to me shaking. She had slipped out of her house under the excuse of meeting a friend, but her hands trembled as she held her coffee mug in my apartment. "Emma, he's starting to notice. He asks questions I can't answer." I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. "Alina, you don't owe him your whole life. You deserve to be happy." Her eyes flickered with pain. "But I promised him forever. And now, I've found forever somewhere else." Those words hit me harder than I expected. Forever. With me. I wanted to believe it, wanted to cling to the hope that love could rewrite the rules, but doubt gnawed at the edges of my heart. Still, our passion only grew. The fear of being caught made every touch more urgent, every kiss more desperate. Nights with her felt like stolen treasure, her body pressed against mine, her lips tasting of longing and defiance. In those hours, nothing else mattered. But mornings were different. Reality always came crashing back. She'd slip out quietly, her wedding ring glinting faintly in the dim light, and I'd wonder how long this could last before everything shattered. The breaking point came one rainy night. She arrived at my door drenched, her mascara running, her whole body shaking. I pulled her inside, wrapping her in my arms before she even spoke. "He knows," she whispered against my chest. "He doesn't know who, but he knows something's wrong. I can't keep lying to him, Emma. I can't keep living two lives." I stroked her hair, my own heart thundering. "Then don't. Choose the life that makes you whole." She lifted her head then, her hazel eyes blazing through the tears. "And what if that life is you?" I froze, my breath caught between terror and hope. "Then you already know the answer," I whispered. That night, we didn't make love like usual. We clung to each other as though the storm outside might rip us apart, as though tomorrow would change everything. Because it would. For the first time, it wasn't just about desire. It was about survival, her choice, our future, the risk of breaking everything she had ever known. And as I held her trembling body against mine, I realized something terrifying. I didn't just want her in secret. I wanted her, entirely. The storm outside raged for hours, but nothing compared to the storm inside her. Alina paced my apartment like a trapped bird, torn between two cages, one gilded, one open. I watched her, my heart aching, knowing I couldn't make the decision for her, even though every part of me screamed to. Finally, she stopped in front of the window, her silhouette framed by the flashes of lightning. "Emma," she whispered, her voice raw, "I've been lying to myself for years. Pretending I was happy. Pretending marriage was enough. But the truth is," she turned to me then, her eyes burning. "I've never felt more alive than when I'm with you." Her words hit me like fire and balm all at once. I wanted to believe them, to let them erase every fear I carried. Still, doubt curled in my stomach. "Alina, if you leave him, it won't be easy. People will talk. He'll fight. You'll lose more than you think." "I know." Her voice cracked, but her gaze didn't waver. "But I'll lose myself if I stay." For a moment, silence hung heavy between us, broken only by the rain hammering the glass. Then she stepped toward me, slowly, deliberately, until her hands were cupping my face. "Emma, I want you. Not in shadows, not in stolen hours. I want you in the light. Her kiss was fierce, urgent, like a vow. We stumbled toward the couch, her lips never leaving mine, our bodies clinging as if we could erase the world outside. But underneath the heat of our passion, something else pulsed, certainty. When she finally pulled back, breathless, she whispered, "I'm telling him tomorrow. I can't keep living this lie." The words made my chest tighten. Fear, yes, but also something intoxicating. Hope. That night, wrapped in each other's arms, we didn't sleep much. We talked in whispers, planning a life that still felt fragile and impossible but dazzling all the same. Trips we wanted to take. A small apartment filled with her paintings and my books. Lazy Sunday mornings without guilt, without pretending. But morning came too soon. When the sun broke through the clouds, she dressed quietly, sliding her wedding ring back on with trembling hands. Her face was pale, her body tense. At the door, she turned to me one last time. "No matter what happens, remember this," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "I chose you. I'm choosing you." Then she was gone, leaving me with nothing but the echo of her words and the terrifying knowledge that by nightfall, everything could be different. For better. Or for worse. The day felt endless. Every hour dragged as I waited for her message, her call, something. My stomach twisted with anxiety, my mind replaying every possible scenario. Would he rage? Would he cry? Would he beg her to stay? And what if she couldn't go through with it at all? By evening, I was pacing my apartment like a restless shadow when my phone finally buzzed. It was a single message from Alina, "Can I come over?" My hand shook as I typed back, "Always." Minutes later, she was at my door. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen from tears, but there was a strange strength in the way she carried herself. She stepped inside silently, and before I could speak, she collapsed into my arms. "It's done," she whispered against my shoulder. I told him. I pulled back enough to see her face. And? Her lips trembled. He was furious at first. He yelled, demanded to know who it was. But when I told him, when I said it was a woman, Emma, he just went quiet. Like he didn't even know who I was anymore. Her eyes filled with tears again. I broke his heart. I held her tighter, my own heart aching for the man she left behind, even though I knew it had to be this way. "You were honest. That's more than most people ever get." She nodded, though her body shook. "He said he'll never forgive me. That I ruined everything. And maybe he's right, but I couldn't keep pretending. Not when I love you." The words hung between us like a fragile glass ornament, beautiful, dangerous, precious. "I love you." My throat tightened, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. Then I whispered back, "I love you too." Her face crumpled, not with regret, but with relief. She kissed me then, not with the hunger of stolen passion, but with the certainty of a woman who had finally chosen her truth. It was soft, tender, filled with tears and hope. We spent that night wrapped in each other's arms, speaking little. The world outside felt fragile, ready to shatter at the smallest touch. But in that room, in that bed, there was only us. Of course, I knew it wouldn't be easy. Divorce. Family. Friends who wouldn't understand. A society that would whisper behind our backs. But as I looked at her sleeping beside me, her wedding ring abandoned on my nightstand, I realized none of that mattered. Because for the first time, she was mine. Not in secret. Not in shadows. But in choice. And the only question left was, what would we do with the life we had just set on fire? The days that followed were a blur of chaos and calm. Alina's world unraveled quickly, phone calls from lawyers, awkward silences from friends, her husband's anger echoing through messages she didn't answer. Yet in the middle of all that storm, she always came back to me. My apartment became her refuge, our small corner of the world where no one judged us, where her tears and laughter could exist side by side. There were nights when she broke down in my arms, whispering, "Maybe I made a mistake. And every time, I kept her face and reminded her, you chose yourself. You chose love. That can never be a mistake. It wasn't easy. We faced stares when we walked hand in hand down the street. Whispers followed us in grocery aisles, and some of her closest friends vanished without a word. But through it all, we clung to each other. Every challenge only made our bond stronger. One evening, months later, I found her painting again in her studio. The unfinished silhouette that once stood on the canvas now had a face. My face. She looked at me shyly when I saw it. I painted the woman who made me brave, she said softly. I stood behind her, wrapping my arms around her waist, my chin resting on her shoulder. And I'm looking at the woman who made me believe in love. She turned then, kissing me with a tenderness that still sent sparks through my veins. No matter how many times we kissed, it never lost its magic, it always felt like the first time, a mix of hunger and wonder. That night, as we lay tangled together, she whispered into the quiet, do you ever wonder what would have happened if I stayed? I pressed my lips to her forehead. I don't care. Because you didn't. You picked me. And now, we get to write our own story. Her fingers traced lazy patterns across my skin, her smile soft and certain. Our story, she repeated, as if tasting the words. And in that moment, I knew that despite the mess, despite the scars we carried, we had something rare. Something worth fighting for. She had chosen me over her husband, yes, but more importantly, she had chosen herself, her truth, her heart. And in doing so, she gave me the greatest gift of all, a love that wasn't hidden, wasn't ashamed, wasn't afraid. The world outside might never understand us. But lying there, with her warmth pressed against mine, I realized it didn't have to. Because for us, the answer was simple. She picked me. And I picked her. Forever.